The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, one of his most famous Sherlock Holmes detective mysteries, blending suspense, supernatural elements, and just classic detective work by Sherlock Holmes. Let's go. Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads, where I am talking Sherlock Holmes, specifically The Hound of the Baskervilles, published in 1902. This mystery story in the Tales of Sherlock Holmes is quite the novel. I read it in this Barnes& and Noble edition. I do have a Signet paperback edition as well. I really enjoyed this novel from the Tales of Sherlock Holmes. It is really, really good. So let's dive right into a summary of the plot. The novel begins with the death of Sir Charles Baskervilles. He's found on the grounds of his estate in Baskerville Hall in the county of Dartmoor, with a look of terror on his face and the footprints of what appears to be a giant hound. The family believes that this is the curse of the Baskervilles, and we learn more about this as the story progresses. But this curse of a legendary phantom hound that has haunted the family for generations and has claimed yet another victim in the Baskervilles. Sir Charles's heir, Sir Henry Baskerville, who is from a farmer from the American Canada area, is warned by Dr. Mortimer, who is a local physician in the area, about this curse. Fearing for Sir Henry's life, Dr. Mortimer evokes the assistance of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. And that is the summary of this story. There is a lot to unpack, especially about what I enjoyed. So let's dive right into that. The premise of this is just great. It's got that gothic atmosphere. This has moors and mires and bogs around the area, but you got this sense of dread, the darkness, mist area, and this hound. It's just very visceral when you're reading it. I believe the moors and the bogs only adds to like this element as they're uncovering, the landscape, the area of where the crime took place, and they being actually in this one Dr. Watson, because Holmes is tied up on some previous cases, and he actually sends Dr. Watson along with Mortimer to meet him at the Baskerville Hall, along with Sir Henry, the new heir, and Holmes stays back. It is nice to get Dr. Watson being more in the forefront in this story, and I loved how they did that. I also enjoyed kind of the diary entries that Watson does, letting Holmes know what is going on and taking place. And there's many twists and turns in this tale, and it is very well done. Obviously, we know that Sherlock Holmes is going to make an appearance in this thing, and he does with vigor. And so that's all I'm going to say. I enjoyed the characters as well here. There is a lot of characters. Obviously, we're not talking, a contained short tale. So this is more of a novel. And so we get some expansion on various characters and how they have their own kind of little arcs and plot threads, and it's done very nicely in how it all wraps up. I really enjoyed Sir Henry. I enjoyed Jack Stapleton, Burl Stapleton, Dr. Mortimer. I even enjoyed the butler Barrymore, along with the escaped convict, which added some to the plot as well. I thought that was really good. A lot of great themes, obviously superstition versus reason. You had deception versus reality. I really like some of the twists and turns. Obviously, we're going to get some twists and turns when it comes to a Sherlock Holmes tale, and this one did not disappoint. There was a couple excerpts that I wanted to share with you that I thought were just great. One of them was from Sherlock Holmes. The world is full of obvious things which nobody by any chance ever observes. And that's one thing about Sherlock Holmes, is I'm starting to do some research for a deep dive character study about Sherlock Holmes, is that Holmes isn't a genius per se, but he is very uncanny when it comes to making just observations of what things are going on. In particular, I will give an example. There was an observation out in the Dartmoor area at the Baskerville estate where Holmes uncovers where Watson is based on the cigarette that he was smoking and noticed when and where he threw it. And so that's just basic deduction stuff that Holmes is just very good at. Another great excerpt was a savage, hungry, bloodthirsty hound. It's madness, Holmes. Madness. And that was Dr. Watson talking to Holmes. I really enjoyed this. There's nothing I dislike. So my rating is a 4.5. This was a great book. Obviously, it's nice to expand on these smaller tales that I have been reviewing on the channel into a bigger book. And lo and behold, upon reading this, I realized I've read this before. And it's always interesting when you don't remember reading a story before, but then when you get into some of the plot details and some of the twists, you're like, yeah, I've read this before. And that definitely hit me here as well. So my overall impression, I think this is a must read for Holmes fans. I think Holmes is such an interesting character here, and I think you get to see it on a little more grander stage. I really like his arc here as well. I've read more Sherlock Holmes lately, and I can understand why there was a huge outcry when Conan Doyle released the final problem, and why people were like, "You can't do this to us," because he is a great character. It's hard not to pull for him. It's hard not to read more, so to speak. I really feel like The Hound of the Baskervilles is just really that classic detective novel. And if you're a fan of Doyle and a fan of Holmes, it's a must read. I hope you enjoy this review of Sherlock Holmes's case, The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And I will talk to you all on the next one. Thanks.